Welcome to Talking Giants presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we have a ton to get to. And I'm turning the lights on. I see shadow on my face.
Oh,
We
let
got
there
a
be light.
ton. We've got a ton to get to. We have Patricia Traina. We did a quick interview with her later on the podcast. We got the camp brawl. We got a Kenny Golladay injury and a bunch of little nuggets that we got to talk to. Justin, how are you? And before I ask you how you are, I'm going to tell you how I am. I'm fired up, man. Like I haven't been like this mad at the national media in a while. And I mean, they had some. The whole national media view of the Giants right now is whacked.
Um, Speaking of national media being bad, I have a microphone arm, as the YouTube people can see. So I guess I'm getting more media snobbish as I go full time, Bobby Skinner. So bad job on me. This week had everything. You know, Stefan, that SNL segment, they're on Weekend Update. This week had everything.
I know we can update.
Well,
I don't know who
Stefan,
Stefan is.
Bill Hader did a whole thing. I can't believe you don't know who that is. It's like a national figure. This week had everything: fights, Jason Garrett, a shirt that said "fight." This week really did have everything, and This is the first week where I really am jazzed up just about football because I got in my car. I drove to the facility acting like I drove to the facility after there was a fight and Joe Judge was eviscerating people. We had full pads on for the first time and we got to react to that and see some of that stuff. People are coming back from injury / we got some injury news that wasn't as bad as we think, and Darius Toney's come back. So there's a lot of reasons to be jazzed up this week, and football's coming.
Well, and part of the reason that we're jazzed up is because of Robert Marmer. And first name Jim, last name he doesn't have one.
Sure.
Who are these last name heathens, Justin?
Halpert, Jim Halpert, went to patreon.com/talking giants. Become a patron. A lot of fun, $2 a month. Plus, there's some other tiers if you really want to support us, which Bobby Skinner's kind of wild for making those tiers, but $2 a month. Shirt raffles. Bobby sends you a free magnet. You get to see the live shows as they happen. Patreon.com/talking giants. Thank you to our patrons.
Do you want to start with Kenny Golladay injury stuff or the fight and the reaction to the fight?
The fight. I want to start with the fight.
All right. So if you've been living under a rock, Tuesday, so it's been, when you're listening to this 3 days ago, so it's kind of old news, but we only do the podcast twice a week. The Giants had a entire squad brawl. Now, I do think it was more of a glorified shoving match than anything. Is essentially Xavier Mckinney hit Corey Clement in a drill where they're supposed to be just like thudding, but he didn't. Like he hit him pretty hard. Evan Ingram shoves Xavier McKinney, and then supposedly Logan Ryan just comes and like spears Evan Ingram in the back. Which, if there's one thing I'm bothered by, it's like, don't do that, dude. Like, you can seriously hurt somebody like that. Don't do that, Logan Ryan. And it just turns into an entire like brawl / pushing match, and Daniel Jones is at the bottom of the fight, so Daniel Jones is getting involved. And Joe Judge, who, by the way, said last year that I have zero tolerance for camp fights. I'll throw you out of camp, and they happen every year. They didn't happen last year for the Giants. Granted, it was a COVID year, so some differences. I mean, he had them doing 100-yard sprints, push-ups, and then reamed them out for a good 5-10 minutes or so.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Judge was pissed off because he doesn't want fights in his practices.
It was the most pissed, according to the beat reporters, the most pissed that they've ever seen him, and I love it. I love the fact that there was a little fight. I don't think that it was anything, luxurious, like you said. I think it was a glorified pushing match, and the beat reporters, as we have learned on Thursday with this whole Jason Garrett situation, they maybe have the tendency to over exaggerate things, but also that's like their job. Their job is to report what's happening and get some clicks. So I kind of don't blame
Thursday
them.
stuff. It's not their job to do that.
Neither here nor there. I was pumped for the team that they're competing. They're out there, they're competing. I was pumped that Joe Judge was eviscerating guys. And, I don't care, if you have the take of, turns football players off. I saw even some Giants fans that were a little critical of, just whether it's the fight, the Joe Judge reaction, whatever. I don't care. I'm pumped up. This is intensity. This is intense. I love intensity. I love football. This was fun and exciting.
Before we get too deep into it, do you think that, Michael Irvin said this, and I said this in my video on Tuesday. Do you think that Joe Judge secretly loved that? You don't want it happening all the time, but do you think there's him and Pat Graham were in the back room after practice. I'm like, man, that was pretty fun since nobody got hurt,
Yeah, I think there's a 75% of him that legitimately does believe that if you do that during a game, you're going to get thrown out. And coaches, good football coaches, are of the belief that you practice how you play. But 25% of them, I think, the first day of pads, that was the first day of pads, correct?
Yes.
So the 25% of them, the first day of pads, and coaches aren't always going to say publicly what they're thinking privately. Yes, I think 25% of them is definitely like, "Ooh, this is kind of good. Guys are getting a little chirpy with each other."
And it's not to say that he wanted that. Like I
No.
100% believe that Joe Judge does not want fights in his practice. If you said, can you have that or don't have it? He's like, I don't want I would never want that to happen again. But I do think there's part of him who's like, I love the freaking intensity and the way these guys are rolling from day one. But like he reamed into him. He had him running sprints. And honestly, for someone who doesn't want fights to happen, guess what's probably never going to happen in a Giants camp with Joe Judge ever again?
A fight.
Seriously, players don't want to sprint. They accept it and they understand it. Like
push-ups
they don't want
too.
to.
They were doing push-ups, and then their break from push-ups was going on 100-yard sprint.
It's like, yeah, they know. There's going to be no camp fights without that without repercussions, and that's why camp fights happen a lot of times, and then they'll never fight in games, even though, like I said, you can become undisciplined if you're just letting that happen all the time. It's because players know that if I fight in a game, I'm losing money in my pocket. I'm leaving the game. Where in camp, it's like, well, you can't get in trouble. It's like, we can't get in trouble for this. Where Joe Judge is like, oh, no, my friends, you can get in trouble. And I saw even guys like Damian Woody being like, sometimes we plan fights to get a break. Well, guess what? Joe Judge doesn't want you making your own breaks.
Yeah. I cannot wait for the day that I am sitting at a Giants practice and I hear this man, and I'm using Snacks loves the word eviscerate, and I think I've used it twice so far this episode. I cannot wait to be sitting at a Giants practice and to hear this man just eviscerate somebody. I cannot wait. Can't wait.
I can't wait to shut up the national media.
Oh, is that
the national media has sucked this week?
Oh, yeah.
It's been brutal. I mean, this got turned into, and honestly, I think a lot of it is Wes Steinberg. Like, I really do think that Wes Steinberg is the reason why a lot of people are reacting to Joe Judge, and they dig in with their takes, and then they realize they look like idiots. And they're like, well, what still? This idea, and this phrase needs to die. It just needs to die in all of football. Even if you're Matt Patricia, well, if they don't win, he's going to lose the locker room. No freaking kidding. No kidding. Do you think that if they lose, they continue to lose, that they won't like him and they won't work? Duh. No, duh. Like, Giants fans love Joe Judge right now. If we lose this season and the season after, I don't think they're going to like Joe Judge anymore. No kidding. They're going to lose the locker room if they continue to lose. And it just kind of showed to me that so many players really don't care about winning that much. It's like, I just want to chill. And I remember even when Ben McAdoo was fired, and I remember a certain safety who wore number 21, when the idea of Bill Belichick came up, he's like, no, we don't really want to work like that. Like, he basically said that flat out in an interview. And it's just, it's just ignorant. Like, if you're saying this about the Lions, okay, but it's like all the Giants vets have bought in. Logan Ryan, Sterling Shepard, Daniel Jones, Jabril Peppers, Saquon Barkley was leading the way in the sprints. Hell, Sterling Shepard, who was here with Ben McAdoo, who never got on them, and then when he needed to get on them, he had zero respect from them. And then Pat Shurmur, who never really got on them and always had their backs and always kind of tried to play it cool with them. Sterling Shepard, in an interview in the offseason, unprovoked, was like, those last regimes, we didn't really condition or anything with Judge we do. So he's like, he was complaining that they weren't doing that.
Even Shepard this week, Bobby, he said, I think post, we're jumping topics here, but post two guys retiring in the span of just a couple days, he said, this ain't for everybody. And if it's not for you, you can, there's the door. He openly and publicly said that. And for a guy that's, like you said, it's been through a couple different regimes and, really, arguably somebody who should have a C on his shirt, but a leader in this locker room, for him to come out and say that, when a lot of people do say, oh, it's the veterans that you really have to get to buy in and get to work hard because the rookies and the young guys are going to do that no matter what. Sterling Shepard candidly came out and said, this ain't for everybody. And there's the door if it's not for you. I love that.
Another talking point has been, well, look, stop trying to be like Bill Belichick. Does anyone who's like ever been around Joe Judge question that this is genuinely him? Does anyone, like, has anyone who covers the Giants been like, this guy's kind of fake? Nobody has. In fact, he goes into detail of explaining why he does everything, not just trying to be a hard ass. Like, you know, the red zone explanation, like, talk about, overworking your players. Guess what? He's been working on red zone to start the first week of camp. Why? Not even necessarily because they sucked in the red zone last year on offense, even though they were really good on defense. He's like, guys are still getting their legs underneath them. So all these, you know, people talking about, he's going to overwork these guys. But guess what? He's working on different drills to build themselves up. And the whole conditioning thing, like, players unprovoked being told, like, hey, they showed us the studies and the results of how we had less injuries than other teams and how the conditioning worked for us to help us. Doesn't mean they're injury free, but how it helped them. So it's like they're seeing the results of that.
And even I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off right here. And I feel like different sports, but I feel like you even see that with the Yankees right now. The Yankees, they take the rest approach. Doubling up rest days, and a guy can't pitch 3 days in a row, and they have like this theory that that's going to work, and that's been one of the reason for their demise the last couple of years, because they're like one of the only teams in baseball that take that ultra rest approach, and frankly, it's destroyed them throughout the last couple of years just of being so conservative. And Jimmy Johnson in A Football Life, which is, I think it's my favorite football life out there. Now, Jimmy Johnson, older school coach, 90s coach, but it's a philosophy that I think a football player should have of, you want to be looking on the other sideline in the fourth quarter, and you want to see the other team and the guy that you're going up against with their hands on their knees and their hands on their hips that they're tired. And you want to be able to run like a deer in the fourth quarter. And he talks about that. And I love that. That line gets me so pumped up. So that's like what you want. And Joe Judge, he's not overworking them, at least on pads yet, which that's what you really do worry about. And that's what the national media, I think, that's what they are perceiving that Joe Judge is doing, that they're just Dan Campbelling Oklahomas over and over again, which that's what he's not doing. He's doing the exact opposite. But the conditioning side of it and getting their bodies ready, Joe Judge is doing that. And that's a great thing.
Well, you even brought up the Aaron Boone thing. Well, even on the personality side, do you think Aaron Boone, who has patted these players on the head and stuff like that, do you think he could go in there and ream them one day?
No.
Do you think that any of them would take him serious if he did that?
No.
He can't do that. So he has to be like the Pat Shurmur. Or if he doesn't, if he goes in there and tries to demand, then it's Ben McAdoo where you have to suspend the guys every single week. And the lapse thing, lapse is like the easiest punishment in the world. You do a light jog around. It's not like he's forcing these guys to sprint around. Yeah. It is a light jog. It's easier than playing football is running laps. There's not like running a lap for a professional athlete might be the easiest form of punishment you can ever have. And then as far as the cursing and stuff, like Joe Judge explains, like, yeah, do I curse a lot? Yeah, but I'm never going to like belittle a player when I'm cursing. I use a language, but I'm not belittling the player, which was an issue with Matt Patricia. And again, the players have bought in. So who cares what these no-name losers who, played third-string tight end for Eric Mangini in 2008 care? Who cares what they say? Because the players have clearly bought in. And guess what? I'm so glad that Joe Judge is doing everything he can to try and get winning out of this team. And by the way, we saw his guy, Patrick Graham, the defense, go from 30th to 9th. Is trying to do everything he can to win instead of being a pussy and trying to extend his leash.
Whoa.
Like instead of just doing everything to try and extend his leash to not catching the heat, he's doing it his way. And they say, don't be like Bill Belichick. Well, guess what? He's not. He is being Joe Judge. And even if this doesn't work out, you cannot say that Joe Judge is not being genuine to who he is.
Yeah. And Bobby, one of the reasons why it may not work out is because of a guy that, do you want to talk about him next and what happened today with him?
Sure, why not? I'm already fired up.
Yeah, we're already talking about media, so go in a little bit more. I'm talking about Jason Garrett.
Pat Leonard, man.
Give us a recap. Not everybody's on Twitter.
I don't even want to spend too much time on this, But Jason Garrett, he had his presser today, which was his first one in person with the Giants. And, I guess apparently he said, it's good to see you guys. And like no one really repeated anything back. And they started, and he like kind of looked at him like, you're not going to say like, good to see you back. And like one or two people like went to say something. He's like, that's how you say that's when you say good to see you, coach. That's how we do it around here. Like was basically saying like, hey, like, say it back. Say it back. And he was smiling. He was joking. He was saying in a laughing manner.
Also, and just as context.
At the rat.
Just as context, everyone on the beat before today, may have changed today, everyone on the beat, all that I heard is that, you don't get a lot out of Jason Garrett during his pressers, but he is the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. That's what you heard out of Jason Garrett. And then this is what happened.
And there's been a billion times, even including in this interview twice, where they said, hey, Jason. And one was like, hey, Jason, how you doing? He's like, I'm doing good. How are you doing? Like, so they've been like, it's not like, it's like they tried, Pat the Rat tried to make this sound like Deion Sanders, where he's like, you need to address me as coach. And they even said it. Like, he never said, like, you need to call me coach. He's like, he demanded that he called us coach. He never said anything like that. So it was totally misconstrued. And then just national media picks it up and starts crapping all over. Like, I have been the biggest Jason Garrett critic.
We.
Like we. And we're going to talk about it a little bit because he kind of got off the hook because of it today.
I'm not letting him off the hook.
The crap that he got today was, I felt bad for him. I felt bad for Jason Garrett for the crap he got for making a joke and not demanding that they call him coach. And then you have guys like Matt Lombardo, writing in his blog because he's a blogger crying about, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't have to call him this. Like he didn't. He didn't even say that. And it was, and I'm on the side that like the beat reporters don't need to call them coach. Like that's a debate in itself, but it's like the beat reporters don't need to call him coach. He's not their coach. But he didn't say that, and it was construed that way and made him look horrible. Like I feel like for the first time ever, I feel bad for Jason Garrett.
I don't, because I'm a bad guy. But really, it wasn't even just Pat. It wasn't even just Pat Leonard. It seemed like there was consensus amongst people on the beat, and I guess, is there a difference between being there and feeling out the situation versus just seeing? I know we have audio.
A lot of them didn't hear it. They saw Pat Leonard's tweet because they had moved on to the next, because they had the other assistant coaches on the side. I don't know which ones exactly, but some of them didn't even hear it. They just saw Pat Leonard's tweet.
Okay. All right. Well, I could honestly care less about that. I could care less about that. Sure. Did he deserve that? And did he deserve to get put through the ringer for, hey, you address me as this, maybe not, probably not.
Just lying. Like
but this is where I had a problem. But I'm talking football here, Bobby Skinner. There was a question, and I'm going to read the exact question, the exact quote. Do you intend to use more motion as far as moving guys pre-snap, trying to get the defense off balance in that regard? Whoever asked that question, credit to you, because it's been about an entire year and an off season where I know Jason Garrett doesn't talk to the media a ton, but there should have been more questions about schematic stuff to either Judge or Garrett long time ago. Answer. Yeah. Motion is, obviously, if you followed our offense last year, a big part of what we've done. That's a lie, first sentence. Last year, we ran a lot more of the no huddle stuff around the line of scrimmage where you don't run as much motion. Second sentence, I think that's also a lie, Bobby. I don't exactly remember being
it's not true.
I don't remember.
When did we ever besides when we needed to run a hurry up? Almost never.
When I can't remember if we were the 2014 Chip Kelly Eagles at any point last year. We were using tempo. Sometimes we went fast, sometimes we went slow. That is very true. Sometimes we went fast. One of my followers brought up a good point where, remember how there were snaps where the Giants would rush up to the offensive line and snap the ball to try to catch the defense off guard. Yes, that did happen. Sometimes we went slow. Absolutely. Maybe sometimes they didn't exactly give a formal huddle, but Daniel Jones was at the line of scrimmage for almost 25 seconds being a maestro and audibling things at the line of scrimmage. That did happen, particularly against Cincinnati. I remember there being multiple times against Cincinnati. The Deion Lewis third down catch on the left sideline against Philadelphia. Those are plays where Daniel Jones let the clock go down to make his adjustments at the line of scrimmage. Yes, we weren't in the huddle as much last year. I don't know if you guys could see that on TV, but that was one of the big things that we did. Motion and shifting and movement. All that stuff has been a big part of what we've done in the past, and I feel like if it applies to a particular game plan, we'll certainly use it. Now, here's my main question. What in the hell does huddling up or not huddling up have to do with pre-snap motion? Now, I could be an idiot.
If you're trying to do a hurry-up offense, like, you don't really have the time for it, but they weren't. No. Like you said, there was time where they did hurry up, but like it was a really bad excuse. It wasn't true. It just wasn't true.
I was bewildered by that answer. And what that tells me is that they're not going to do it. And Kadarius Toney, I hope I'm wrong.
Apparently they use Toney in motion a ton today. But
but also they threw the ball downfield all last summer. And then what did they do during the regular season? They didn't throw the ball downfield. So this is why I just go, and I know it's just quote, but this is why, if you hear me and you hear how I talk about this Giants offense, and I'm just not excited for it. And frankly, I am aiming for average. And I think that is best case scenario. And this man is the reason why it is best case scenario, because there will never be a day where he is amplifying his players. It is going to be his players that amplify him, because that's what his Dallas coaching career was. A Hall of Fame roster. DeMarcus Ware is a Hall of Famer. Jason Witten is a Hall of Famer. Des Bryant was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL at one point. Tony Romo is a borderline Hall of Famer. I'm rooting for Tony Romo to be a Hall of Famer because that makes Eli Manning's Hall of Fame candidacy that much better.
Tony Romo's not a Hall of Famer.
But I'm actually low-key rooting for him to be. And the things that I saw Tony Romo do as a young Giants fan and break my heart multiple times at MetLife Stadium, Hall of Fame offensive line for years, and he did nothing with that team. And finally, he got a bad roster and a bad offense, and they were crap. And they were Adam Gase. That's what they were last year. So this man, and it's a good question where pre-snap motion and motion at the snap is a legal form of cheating. It's legal. It is a legal form of cheating in the National Football League, where it gives time for a QB to diagnose what's going on in front of him. It does not complicate an offense. It doesn't. It's not about timing. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's about helping a QB diagnose what's in front of him. And he blatantly doesn't do it. I'm done.
All right. But I can't complain about that until we see it in a game again, which is, like you said, it's very likely that nothing changes. I hope things do change. But it's you know me.
But excusing that it was a big part of your offense last year, when there's also just Seth Walder pretty much puts this together every single week, where
it was a horrible excuse. But I also, me, I don't care about press conference, what coaches say in pressers.
Well, no, but also saying that we have to be better, that's part of it. And excusing like, oh yeah, we did it a ton when you didn't. Flat out.
Oh yeah, he totally just made that up. I mean, there's flat. It's not like a matter of opinion. It's numbers. Yeah.
I'm done. We know the frustrations with Jason Garrett, but this is part of my line of thinking of, if you get mad at me, it's like, oh, why don't you think this offense can be top 10? And why don't you think this offense can put up 30 points a game? Blah, blah, blah. Well, this is why, because we have a man that probably thinks a lot highly of himself than he honestly should.
Call him coach, okay?
Yeah, Jason.
Don't bet against Jason Garrett. DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. Speaking of America, our top athletes are over in Tokyo competing for the gold, and DraftKings has a medal-worthy offer for just my listeners. Listen to this great offer. Place any pre-event wager of $1 to be eligible to cash $100 in free credits if America wins any medal this year. That's 100-to-1 odds on an American athlete to stand on the podium and receive gold, silver, or bronze this week. 100-to-1 odds on it, and an offer like this doesn't come around often. So sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook now to get in on all the action. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It's easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get all the action. My friends love it. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code JOHNBOY when you sign up to turn $1 to $100 and free credits if America wins a medal. The code JOHNBOY to turn $1 to $100 and free credits for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. See New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana 1-800-9 with it. Kenny Golladay hurt his hamstring, but they say it's not that bad. Going to be 2 to 3 weeks per Zach Rosenblatt, but they're really going to baby it. So I'm not worried about this. The only thing I'm worried about is that's 2-3. That's like 2 weeks or so with less chemistry making with Daniel Jones.
Yeah. And spoiler alert,
any injury concerns I have for Golladay were they didn't get heightened by this really. No.
Frankly, I am a lot more relieved because hamstring injuries can linger. I've said it 4 times already this summer, and we're going to say it again. Spoiler alert, Kenny Galladay's PPP is on Monday, so give a little bit more takes as to that. But yeah, I'm not extremely worried because also Kenny Golladay is the best wide receiver that Daniel Jones has ever worked with. And when a good player is on the football field, I have a feeling that Daniel Jones is going to recognize that, and he's going to use them. And even if they don't have the most chemistry in the world, those two are going to be all right.
I mean, even think about Slayton his rookie year. They had really good chemistry. Remember Slayton basically missed almost that entire camp?
Yeah.
He played the one Cincinnati game, and that was basically he missed a lot of time. And then he missed the first 2 games of the season.
He balled out in that Cincinnati game with Daniel Jones. That first time that they were basically kind of throwing to each other. Besides
one
the
nice
rookie camp,
pass on Will Jackson, who plays for the Redskins now. So yeah, I do think that if they truly are babying it, like they say, and then it's not that bad, or like we've heard, I do hope they still do some drill. Like Shane Lemieux is out there; he's not practicing with the full pads team practice, but he's out there working some drills and stuff. So if it's what they say, I think Jones should still be doing side work with Kenny Golladay and trying to work on that chemistry a little bit.
Yeah, more end zone fates. I'm here for it.
So, I don't even know why I'm saying this, but if Kenny Golladay was really hurt, how bad does that just ruin your mood for this season?
Oh, yeah.
I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. Someone whose season is ended, Levine Toilolo tore his Achilles. He was the 4th tight end. Caden Smith was practicing above him anyways, and Levine Toilolo was already dealing with some injury stuff. I mean, it sucks for him, but on a just a football note, I don't think it really affects the Giants that much, unless Kyle Rudolph. You know what? We've been talking. We talk about Saquon Barkley and stuff. I think could we be a little worried? When's Kyle Rudolph coming back? Saquon's a freak athlete. Kyle Rudolph isn't.
Yeah. What is it? A foot injury with Rudolph?
Yeah.
Yeah, pushing off the foot. Yeah. And he's not the most athletic guy in the world to begin with. And he's had regression, I put that in quotes, regression issues in Minnesota anyway the last couple of years. So it's worth being worried about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what?
But at the same time, Levine Toilolo being on the roster doesn't make you feel much better about it either,
But what's honestly not, it's worrisome when you just consider Kyle Rudolph as a player, but it's not worrisome knowing that you have Caden Smith. And this does basically all but stamp Caden Smith's spot on the 53 if there was an argument. If there was an argument with it in the beginning before the Toilolo injury.
Yeah, I think he was pretty much the way camp started, it was almost there was no thought of Caden being cut anyways. Now, the other tight ends they have on the roster, Cole Haikutini, Ryson John, Tommy Stevens, who they just signed, who's a quarterback for Mississippi State, Nakia Griffin-Stewart. I don't think they're going to shoehorn a 4th tight end in now, right? Keep a guy like Sills, man. Sills has been balling out from everything we've seen.
Sills 84?
Yes.
Tight end number, but he's going up there like a contested catch tight end guy.
Yeah.
I think it was actually, is it Patricia Trainia that says in this interview that it's a very poor man's Kenny Golladay, going up there with the contested catches?
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I'm back on the David Sills train. I tried to keep myself off of it going into this, but I'm back. Like I want him on the roster. Like put David Sills on this roster.
He's
I don't care what you
6'3".
have to do. He works with like every single Daniel Jones workout. And he worked out with all different players. It wasn't like he was the same guy. The one guy who was there for every single one of them, though, was David Sills. Whether it was in North Carolina, Arizona, even when Daniel Jones was doing the charity like Senior Bowl stuff, David Sills was there. Like David Sills has been working with Daniel Jones forever. Like just keep him for that sake alone. Like the David Sills army is getting stronger, and I am joining the David Sills army. Keep him on this roster.
I'm looking at pictures too.
What are you looking at pictures of?
I'm looking at pictures of David Sills because I like to give every year, who's going to be the Giants' most attractive player on the roster. Last year it was Blake Martinez. This year I'm thinking it's Sandro Platzgummer because he kind of looks like Blake Martinez. But I'll tell you what, David Sills could get that award.
How about Joe Looney?
Oh, that picture.
Giants had 2 players retire. I don't really want to spend too much. I really don't want to spend too much time on this retiring stuff. Todd Davis said they were asking. It felt like they were asking to start. Everybody praised the coaching staff, which essentially to me meant like he was down on the. He didn't come in like as. I think he kind of wanted to come in as like I'm the starting inside linebacker, and he wasn't. And then Joe Looney supposedly just didn't have it physically. Like he's like I just don't. I don't have it to play football anymore, so he retired. So. Do we need to spend any time on this? I mean, this was more just fun to joke around about, like Joe Judge is forcing guys to retire.
Yeah, just more and more victims of the Joe Judge camp experience. I absolutely love it. Yeah, sucks. Once a Giant, always a Giant.
Read the ad and send it to the interview. I need to return this call.
Yeah, go return the call. I got it. My show. It's everybody's worst fear. It's a Justin Solo show, and we need to thank our friends at Sports Management Worldwide. They are the global leader in online sports business education. They teach people how to work on the business side of sports. Their classes are taught by industry professionals. Probably not Pat Leonard, probably not by Matt Lombardo, your mentors. They've been in the game you want to work in and have done the jobs you want to do. They have graduates who work for all 32 NFL teams. Also, Patrick Hanscom, who is an area scout for the Giants. So if you want to be an agent, if you want to be a scout, if you want to work in a front office, if you want to work with film, Sports Management Worldwide, they got you covered. You can learn from former GMs like Tampa Bay GM Mark Dominic, football analytics gurus, Aaron Schatz, who is a Football Outsiders. I absolutely love Football Outsiders. Can't believe they got Aaron Schatz to work with them. Mike Trainer, also a Football Outsiders. Very pumped that they have those guys working with them. I may even do this. And guess what? You can apply free at smww.com and use the discount code GIANTS for $50 off the first course of your choice. They offer courses in football, baseball, basketball, soccer, and more. If you have always dreamed of a job working in Sports Management Worldwide, they can help you from sports betting to esports, sports broadcasting. And again, I did a little broadcasting last year, but I may want to brush up at smww.com. They have the what you know and who you know to get you in the game you love. smww.com. Use code GIANTS, $50 off your first course. Every time I read the ad, gets even cooler. Thank you to those guys and gals. Bobby Skinner. Oh, I'm throwing in the interview. Man, see, I'm really bad at this. All right. So we had Patricia Trainia on.
Sports Illustrated, Patricia Traina. Here it is.
There you go. Watch the clown. All right. Welcome back to the show. And now we want to welcome on Patricia Trainia of GiantsCountry.com, Sports Illustrated, and also one of my favorite books, The Big 50 Men and Moments That Made the New York Giants. Patricia Traina, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
What's up, guys? Good to see you as always. Hope the summer is treating you well. And hey, football is just around the corner now.
Yes, I'm also very jealous of your backdrop. I mean, YouTube crowd's getting an extra treat. Your backdrop, it is better than both mine and Bobby's. And, we're behind the camera every single day. So I'm very jealous of your backdrop. I want to ask to kind of kick this off first, because I feel like all Giants fans are talking about, and at least this is what's going through my mind too. It's just Joe Judge mania, Joe Judge frenzy. Now that, you're actually there and you're reporting more this year. What is a Joe Judge practice like? Kind of a big macro picture question. What is a Joe Judge practice like? Does it compare to any of the past coaching staffs, or how does it differ from the past coaching staffs since, I think, you've been through the last few regimes with the Giants?
Yeah, it's very intense. There's no wasted downtime. I think they realized that you only have so many practices to get things done during the summer. And Joe has the practices structured in such a way that really there's no wasted time, which is the biggest thing. He also paces those guys. So it's not like, okay, the first day of practice, boom, we're going 100 miles per hour. He ramps them up because he knows that even though there's, only so many training camp practices to go, you can't hit the ground running per se. You have to work up to that. So the way he structures the practices is pretty interesting. I don't know if you saw it or not, but he was asked about, why have you been focusing more on the red zone now as opposed to, doing the other stuff? And he explained it. He says, well, it's a shorter area of the field, so the guys don't have to run as long. And that allows me to ramp them up while also addressing, the top, an important area of the field, which we all know they struggled with last year, and just, gradually build them up. So everything he does has a reason for it. And when you understand what that reason is, you sit there and you go, oh man, that is genius.
Yeah, I heard that the other day, and I was like, wow, I never really thought about that. Like, just, I thought, they were working on red zone. It's like, okay, they struggle in the red zone. They want to get working on red zone. And then you hear the answer from Judge. It's like, oh, it's a lot deeper than that. But we have to ask you about this. One, how is this training camp fight different from others? And two, I know Joe Judge, supposedly gave them a nice, 5-minute colorful speech. Do you think he secretly is happy that it happened now that no one got injured?
I don't think he's secretly happy that it happened, despite the fact no one got injured. He was talking about it today on the conference call, and he said, look, anything that's going to cost this team penalties or make it harder for them to score or whatever, he says, I have no tolerance for that. As for the fight itself, do you remember the old days with Keith Hamilton and Rich Seibert going at it? I mean,
oh yeah, it seems like last year was the outlier where we didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, those were true brawls. I mean, you saw fists coming at you, kicking. Do you remember? I think it was a couple of years ago. I think it was Snacks Harrison ripped off somebody's helmet. I can't remember who the player was.
I believe
Hernandez's.
My favorite of all time is Shockey versus the Jets in Intra-Squad, but I can't find any video of that, even though I did remember seeing it on SportsCenter way back in the day.
But, the point I'm getting at is I wouldn't say that yesterday's ruckus was really a fight per se in the true sense of training camp. I mean, I've covered a lot of training camps. I've seen a lot of fights. It wasn't an all-out bar brawl. It was more of a ruckus, I guess, than anything.
I call it a glorified shoving match.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it, Bobby. It was a glorified shoving match. What you didn't want to see was Daniel Jones at the bottom of the pile. And, I made this point on my podcast too. This really bothered me. I mean, I get it that Daniel, hey, I'm part of the team. I'm not going to back away. I want to show I'm tough, but you got to be smart, Daniel. Come on. Now, I don't know if he was pulled into I couldn't tell, if he was pulled into the pile or what happened there, but you got to be smart. And it just seemed like the whole team piled onto the pile there. And Joe was not happy with it. And he told us today on his presser that, he basically threw the whole team out of practice. They had like a couple more sessions they wanted to get done. So he cut short the practice and he said, look, we were going to do conditioning work anyway. I just started it early and I intensified it. And it was a scene out of, I don't know if you saw the Miracle on Ice, the famous again scene. Mm-hmm. That's what it kind of reminded one of.
And this is the stuff that we were jazzed up yesterday. It's probably different on, your side of things where like, this is the work and you need to make the observations, write up your reports, etc. But this is the stuff that gets us jazzed up. I mean, I made a video where I fake got in my car and I started to drive to the facility because I couldn't take it. I need to see it. So really the feel and the energy around this team, according, probably the national media is like, this guy's too tough and this will never work. But at least with us, especially if you compare it to the previous two regimes, at least in my opinion, this is just such a different feel and energy that this guy is bringing. And that has to be kind of in line with kind of maybe what you're seeing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything he does has a purpose to it. And, I had an opportunity to speak with him one-on-one a few weeks back, a couple weeks before the start of training camp. And, I told him, I said, a lot of people have questioned why you do things. I said, with the exception of one thing you did last year, and that one thing was playing Daniel Jones coming off the injury when it was clear Daniel Jones couldn't even walk, let alone defend himself. I said, with that one exception, I said, everything you've done makes sense. And I don't know if that's just because I'm old school, or, I come from covering Tom Coughlin's entire tenure where I grew an appreciation for that. I don't know if that's it, but I like what he's doing. He's teaching. This isn't about being the quote unquote hard ass, being a pain in the butt or anything like that. This is about getting your message across. And these guys are responding to him. We saw it last year. We're seeing it this year. And, look, some players will revolt if they're treated like children. These guys are not. They see why Joe is doing what he's doing. He's explaining to them why he's doing what he's doing. And, right now, as far as I know, all is happy in the land of the Giants.
Well, we are happy when that's happening. Now, we talked about this with Art last week, and it's kind of changed since then. There's 4 wide receivers who are guaranteed on the roster, essentially: Slayton, Shepard, Golladay, and then Kadarius Toney. And then last year, it was like someone needs to take this wide receiver 5 spot, and it ended up being Damian Ratley, who wasn't even on the team, until cutdowns, and CJ Board. Now, this season, they have a guy in Dante Pettis who they played towards the end of last year. John Ross, obviously, former first-round pick. And then now the guy who really was behind, the whole fan base was behind last year, and David Sills is supposed, having an impressive practice. How is that wide receiver 5 job unraveling this to start camp? And does David Sills have a good shot, as good a shot at it as those other 2 guys? Because I like him, but going into this, I was like, it's really between Ross and Pettis, but it seems like he's emerging.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Bobby. Look, I look at it this way. It's going to come down to special teams. And I don't remember off the top of my head what David Sills was able to give them on special teams last year. I don't think it was much. But look, here's the other thing. David Sills is he's a tall possession receiver. And you're right. He's looked fantastic in camp so far. That being said, is your 5th receiver going to be, a return specialist? Is it going to be a gunner, which CJ Board was last year? Remember, the gunner play last year was very unstable until Board came along and kind of calmed that down a little bit. And that was a big problem with the punt coverage. So I really think special teams is going to come into play here. And, I mentioned David Sills' skill set. It's not, I don't want people to think I'm comparing him to Golladay, but the skill set is kind of similar to Galladay's, but a very poor man's version of it. In that he's a tall receiver, he's a possession receiver. And, to me, maybe you try and put David Sills on the practice squad so that if Kenny Golladay has injury issues, which right now, of course, he has a hamstring, now you've got a viable backup who can come in and, pick up as best as possible. And I know there would be a drop off. Again, I don't want people to think I'm saying that Sills and Golladay are on equal ground, because they're not. But you look at the skill set and where do they match up best? So I think special teams definitely is going to come into play. And, is it going to be a returner? Is it going to be a gunner? I would say probably a gunner would have a better chance of getting that 5th receiver spot, but it's early yet. So we'll see how it plays out.
We're getting preseason games again. Who is someone that's besides, the starters or guys who are expected to contribute once the real season starts, that is showing off in camp that might gain the fan base's favor in preseason? Because there's always someone who, becomes the darling of the fan base in the preseason.
Yeah. What was that guy's name? Adelaide Joho, I think, was one. And Jonas
Washington was one.
Yes, Jonas Seawright, the legend of Jonas Seawright. You remember him?
Yes.
Let me think for a second there. would probably say somebody on defense. And I'm trying to think. Carter, he's not really like, he's established, but Carter Coughlin is a guy who has really stood out to me. I mean, he's a guy that originally they were going to play inside, but because of the injuries on the edge last year, he got some outside snaps. I know he's a draft pick, so maybe that doesn't count.
No, it does, because I mean, right, we didn't know if he's going to make the roster even coming in.
I think he will. Yeah, I think he will. I mean, because they only have 3 undrafted free agents. I would say a guy to keep an eye on right now, maybe Kenny Wiggins is a guy that I think a lot of people maybe didn't have making the roster, that I think has a better chance of making it, because, when you look at the offensive line and how they're building that, you've got the 5 projected starters. And now for the depth, you figure if they keep 9 guys, they're going to need 4 guys for depth. So Nate Solder's your swing tackle. Joe Looney's going to be your backup in center. And then Wiggins can play guard or tackle. So now you've got a guy who's versatile enough to play there. So he would be a guy to keep an eye on. I'm just trying to think who else. Carter Coughlin, I mentioned. Gosh, it's kind of
Kenny Wiggins would be an interesting one, because
yeah.
I mean, he was signed mid-season last year, and went right before the trade deadline. So that, in my mind, I was like, oh, does that mean Kevin Zeitler is gone? But he's not part of like a free agency signing. They signed Zach Fulton, where we kind of really didn't think about Kenny Wiggins at all going to camp, and then Lemieux goes down, and Kenny Wiggins is all of a sudden playing in that
exactly.
role.
Very telling, I thought. The fact that Zach Fulton wasn't the first man off the bench like we thought it was. Now, I don't know if that's because Zach Fulton is primarily a guard on one side, or how that worked out, but I thought that was very telling. And then just doing the research on Kenny Wiggins, I'm like, okay, this guy can play guard, he can play tackle, he can really play anywhere. And Joe Judge, the theme of this year's camp is versatility. So the more you can do, the better your chances of sticking around. And that's why you see guys cross training. I thought it was interesting, even Joe talking about the starting offensive line, or the projected starting offensive line, him saying that Nick Gates, the center, would get some snaps at guard, which made me think for a while there that maybe Joe Looney was going to slide in there at center, and they were going to shake that up. We haven't seen that yet, but just, so many possibilities. And I think that's what Joe likes, is to have different possibilities, because how many years, guys, have we screamed about the Giants being predictable? Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think we can say that about this team with the, the offensive weapons, the defensive packages. I compare it to a Rubik's Cube, which maybe isn't the best, example, but a Rubik's Cube, you have trillions of combinations that you can twist that thing into. And I think on offense and defense, if Jason Garrett is creative enough, if Patrick Graham is creative enough, and we've seen Patrick Graham is creative, they can do any number of combinations, including stuff that maybe we won't see or haven't seen before late into the season. That's how versatile these guys are.
And speaking of creativity, someone who was in the center of the action yesterday, Xavier Mckinney, he's kind of working as like an off-season acquisition, because he really barely even played last year. And now this is really going to be his first full camp. So what are you seeing, some things from early observations that you're seeing from him, and maybe how he's being used, where he's kind of running with ones, twos? I don't even know if you could say what you could say about Xavier Mckinney, because really having the threat of those 3 safeties back there, it really does help Patrick Graham and this coaching staff really be creative, and makes this defense a huge wild card and an unknown. And I say that in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, if you remember the 2011 team, what was a staple of that defense? They had 3 good safeties. Remember? Yep. They have 3 good safeties down. And you're right. It allows them to do any number of combinations. I mean, McKinney can play the slot. He can play deep center field if you need him to. You can have him down in the box. He can play the star. I mean, you can move him anywhere. I think I've even, last year, I think he even lined up a couple times on the defensive line as off the edge. So this kid is very versatile. There's that word again. Fresh legs, very enthusiastic, but yet very controlled and focused. Coming from Alabama, there's just something about that program. I don't know what it is, but there's something about that program that these young men come in to an NFL team, and enthusiastic, but they're controlled. They're not like all over the place like a rookie who's wide-eyed and, oh my God, this is awesome. And, I got to make that first big hit to impress the coach. So I really like what I've seen so far from Xavier McKinney. And, I think we're just now starting to see, they're starting to scratch the surface with how he can be best deployed in that defense. And he's going to be a key for sure moving forward.
Yeah, it's not only exciting to see how good he'll be this year, but also, like you said, it's like we're not even 100% sure how they're going to use him because he's Pepper. Like you could say he has a similar skill set to Peppers, but I don't think they are going to transform Pepper's role and give it to McKinney. Last question, I'll let you go with Sam Beal. Do you think his days are numbered as a Giant?
I think so, Bobby. When they drafted him initially, there was a lot of hope, and I know Dave Gettleman spoke about, the year after, he said, oh, this guy, if he had been coming out, he would have had an even higher grade. Tons of talent. Let's not, take that away from him, but you got to be on the field. You got to harvest that talent. And we just haven't seen it. And I think it speaks volumes that they went out and they signed Adoree Jackson. They drafted Aaron Robinson. They traded for Isaac Yiadom. Darnay Holmes was a draft pick last year. They moved on, sort of, if you think about it. I don't see how Sam Beal survives. I mean, it's funny. Somebody asked me for my podcast if I could think of anybody who came in and had a lot of hype as far as the talent, but didn't make it. And I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but I thought of DeMontre Moore and all the talent he had coming in and how he wasn't able to really make it with this team and really has struggled to find a place in the NFL because of maturity issues. Now with Sam Beal, I'm not saying he has maturity issues, but I think there's definitely the talent. You see the talent. He had the offseason issue, I think, out in Ohio, but he's still here, so that certainly is something to take into consideration. But I just don't know how you fit him on here. Do you maybe move him to the practice squad, considering all the time he has missed? I mean, that could be a possibility, but I don't see him making the 53-man roster now.
Right. All right, Patricia, where can people follow you and find your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Patricia_Traina, Traina. You can find me on giantscountry.com, which is the SI Sports Channel Giants page. And of course, I'm the host of the Locked On Giants podcast. And fingers crossed, starting next week, at least that's the plan, we're actually going to YouTube with the podcast. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
In addition to doing the traditional podcasts on, iTunes and Google Play and Odyssey and all those other, wherever you get your podcasts. So that's going to be new for me. And hopefully I don't embarrass myself and, it goes along.
No more
smoothly.
than we already do. So
yeah, but you guys are pros. I mean, I'm still adjusting to video and
professionals at embarrassing ourselves. I know.
No, you guys are fine.
Patty, thank you again for coming on. Always a good time. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everyone. Today, we are taking a second to talk about one of the best all-around sports shows on the John Boy Media Network. That's Wake and Jake, hosted by Jake Story and Big Baby David. He's a big baby. From talking baseball and talking Yanks. Each episode is jam-packed with all the sports stories you need to know. I've been on there a couple times. And I'll probably go back on. You know what? I think I'll be on there when I'm in New York next week. How about that? So make sure to look out for it. I'm inviting myself on. Jake and BBD recap the latest scores and headlines across baseball, basketball, football, hockey, more. They have Bro of the Night and Bro of the Night. I can't remember what mines were. Guests like Jeff Passan, Chris Rose, Trevor Plouffe, and Bobby Skinner make appearances to give their thoughts across the league and partake in games and contests. I added my name in there. Oh. I've been on there more times than Jeff Rose, I think.
Jeff Rose? Who was Jeff Rose?
Or Chris Rose. I mixed Jeff Passan and Chris Rose.
There you go.
Jeff Passan, he gets baseball stories, so he's interesting. New episodes are released every Monday and Thursday mornings, whatever you find your favorite podcasts. You can also watch the show live on the Wake and Jake YouTube channel or John Boy Media Facebook page. All right, that's an episode. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Monday for PPP. Kenny Galladay and Adoree Jackson PPP, actually. And then Tuesday, we will having Barstow Clem on the show. And I'm gonna be in New York next week for FanFest.
We're
Give
going
me something to
to.
break.
I guess we should maybe say this now. We're going to the Met game Tuesday night. So if you want to join us and you want to buy tickets, we haven't bought our tickets yet. I don't know where we're sitting. Don't ask. Probably going to buy them the day of. But Tuesday night, we are intending on going to that Met game.
Yeah, we are gonna buy them the day of. They're playing the Nationals too. I'm gonna root for the Nationals so freaking hard.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys. We'll be back. Enjoy your weekend. This is the last weekend without Giants like football to watch. So enjoy that. We appreciate you guys. Enjoy your weekend. See you next time. Until then, let's go Big Blue.